This podcast is made possible through donations from listeners like you and our partners at Tallman Equipment. Tallman Equipment prides itself in having more lineman tools in stock than anyone else. And now, when you're shopping online at tallmanequipment.com, look for the truck logo that says Fast Ship on hundreds of items on their website. That logo means that item is in stock and ready to ship the same day in most cases. When it comes to getting the tools and equipment linemen need, trust Tallman. Line 11 Clothing Company, making apparel for our first responders with a positive message to patriots that you can be proud of. The proceeds of the cost goes to helping our foundation ignite the fire for father engagement. Give them a follow at Line 11 Clothing on Instagram. And finally, Monzingo Knives. Each knife is created with craftsmanship that only a tradesman could provide. Find them on Instagram at Monzingo Knives and get your American-made Monzingo knife today. Hello, and welcome to Show Up Dad podcast. At the Show Up Dad, we recognize that fathers providing for their children is certainly important. But when men truly understand their unique role and gain the knowledge and skills to be great fathers, they can transform and impact future generations. My special guest is none other than my beautiful daughter, Nekodah Cashlin Mendonca. She is 15 going on 16 and is my firstborn. It is said that the firstborn is the exact replica of their father. I guess the big question for a lot of fathers is out there is, what do our kids think? And that's why I brought her onto this podcast. We've heard from us from the mother's perspective, the father's perspective. And now I would like to interview my daughter to see what really is going on in our children's heads. Okay. So that's why she's on here. And I just want you guys to welcome her. And thank you for being on the podcast, honey.
Thank you for having me, Dad. So a little bit about myself is my dad's the CEO of the Show Up Dad, and I'm really proud of that. I think it's really amazing what he's been doing here. Something about me is...
What's your favorite color?
I have a lot. Right now it's gray. I think it's pretty. My favorite animal has to be a wolf.
Why a wolf, though?
I don't know. There's just something about them that's magical, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're pretty interesting. Like the way that they can like run for like such a long periods of time, and like how much stamina that they have, and like how they hunt in packs, and how like the whole ranking system of like the alpha, omega, and like stuff like that. I find it interesting.
So the hierarchy then.
Yeah, basically.
Man, definitely sounds like you might have your career in the military or something. Don't do it. No, but on a serious note, though, I guess a big question for a lot of the fathers is like, what do our kids think? And I just want to ask you. That's why I brought you on this podcast, Nekodah, because I want you to answer some of the hard questions that we have. Like one of the first questions would be like, what does a daughter truly need from her dad?
Their presence. That's something that's really needed in a girl's life, because if we don't have that I guess validation from our fathers, then we tend to look for it in other men, and that can lead to sending nudes and going on and like dating and like jumping from men to men to men to men, and that we're just trying to fill that hole in our heart. From that's meant to be filled by our father's love.
But why is it so, like, how does it make you feel like when I acknowledge you? Like, say for instance, if I'm talking to your brothers and then you come up and you want that validation from me and I kind of blow you off, how does that make you feel?
Kind of makes me feel like I'm not really part of the family, I guess. Like, you're paying more attention to the brothers rather than me, and I kind of get like lonely, and I'll brush it off, but like it still hurts a little bit.
Do you feel that it builds like resentment, like it builds up inside you until it boils over?
To a point, yeah. Like if you continuously do it and then there's something going on with me that day, and that just like is, the cherry on top, and then it just all comes out. And
Mm-hmm. So what can we say to father? Because I know for you, there's a lot of times that you tend to isolate yourself. You'll go to your room and everything. So do you feel it helps when I go and knock on your door and ask you, hey, Nekodah, are you okay today? Do you like when I do that,
um
or do you need that space?
yes and no. Like there's points in time where I'll just be like, I want to be left alone right now, just like leave me alone, let me be like by myself and like try to go through like what's happened
Mm-hmm.
through the day. Like that's when I'll probably like want to be left alone. And then like if whenever I come down to dinner, or just like come down from my room, I think that would be like a great time to say like, hey Nekodah, are you okay? Or just like come up and give me a hug.
Mm-hmm.
Like that I've noticed like you've done that a couple of times, and that's always helped.
Mm-hmm. So you like that rather than me going to your room and knocking on your door and checking on you?
Yeah, and barging in and
Okay.
like invading my personal space.
Mm. Again, I think a lot of times for us fathers, we feel that since we provide the house, this is our rules, that we have the right to go anywhere in our house. How does that make you feel, like if I say, oh, this is my house?
Well, that's true. You do provide for us, and I'm really thankful for that. But at the end of the day, we still need our space. Like we still have a bubble that shouldn't be breached. Like that's everybody is entitled to having their own personal space.
Mm.
And
Go ahead. Sorry.
it's okay. And being left alone every once in a while to, cool down and blow off some steam.
I think a lot of times fathers don't know what's going on. So we think we have to come into the rescue, right? Because you're our little girls. We love you, and there's nothing we wouldn't do for you guys. So we go on this like problem solving deal where we're like, okay, I got to get to the bottom. I got to see what's going on. Did someone hurt my daughter? Blah, blah, blah. I know, at least for me. So I go into this like protective mode, which is not a mode that's connecting, I guess, in a sense. There's no real connection to it. It's almost like it's robotic or mechanical instead of more organic. So it kind of, I see where you can take it wrong when I go in there, and then you're like, oh man, you're invading my space. What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Or is dad mad at me or whatever? So I can totally see your point of view.
Yeah, because like whenever you come in, you kind of like barge in and like you sit down and like you're trying to fix a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you pry, this is for me, when you like pry and like try to force me to talk about it when I don't really want to talk about it and just be left alone, that forces me to close up even more. And then that is added to the boiling pot, and then it just builds up and builds up, and then that's when like I'll go and I'll explode at you. Like I don't mean to explode, it's just like I want to be left alone right now. Let me cool down, and then once I'm cooled down, then you can come and check up on me.
So in that moment when you want to be left alone, is it because you're trying to process what has gone wrong in your day, or whatever is troubling you today? Are you trying to like truly understand what happened? Is that what's going on?
Basically, and it's just like the fact of just like being left alone and thinking about what happened, and seeing if there are any areas where I can fix it before I have to go to you guys and ask for help.
And I truly understand that. I do, especially now that you're becoming more of an adult. You're growing up to be such a wonderful young lady. The problem that I have is that I want you to be able to come to me. I want you to bring your issues to me. And I get it. I get it. You're my little girl. And a part of that is accepting that you are growing up and you're not going to be this little girl anymore, and I can't solve your problems. All I can do is just help you be able to navigate your problems and make wise decisions, so I think it's growth on both ends for the father and for you as well, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Like there'll be times where, like once I've cooled down, I'll come to you guys and, I'll get some great advice from you guys.
Mm-hmm.
But I truly understand that part of like wanting to be there and wanting to help. But like you just have to, stand down just like a little bit so
Mm-hmm.
that way I can cool down.
Mm-hmm.
Because when something's going on like off in my day and like I get like mad or fed up, I just want to be left alone. And like you couldn't do anything wrong. It's just like if you just like poke me a certain way, that'll escalate to the situation where like I'm pissed off at you now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's just best to like, let me cool down and then come in and then start working your way and like seeing what's wrong. And then you can problem solve and give me advice on what to do here.
Oh, okay. So instead of poking and prying, right, and trying to get you to open up, give you your space. Is that what I'm hearing correct?
Mm-hmm.
Give you your space and allow you to come to us with what you're dealing with, right?
Right. Because for me, I'm very independent. So I want to, I want to be the one to solve it. But at the end of the day, that's something that I need to work on because I can't do everything by myself. And that's something that I need to understand and, come to you guys. And I've come to you guys before about like situations with friends or like boys or anything like that. And, your advice has like really helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's some great advice for fathers out there. Fathers, if you're listening, don't try to poke or prod them. Just make sure the lines of communication are open so they can come to you with their problems. And also for daughters out there, know that we love you. We love you tremendously and we want you to be successful in all that you do. So that's why we poke and we pry, because we're the daddy bear. We want to be able to protect our little girls.
Right. I understand that. And
so don't take offense.
Yeah. There's like certain times like where I'll want you to like, you don't have to like poke and pry and be like, Nekodah, answer up. Like, Nekodah, tell me what's going on. Just like be like, okay, you want your space. I understand that. If you ever need to talk, I'm here for you. Just know that I'll always be here for you. That's like reassurance, saying that we can go and we can talk to you and we can hopefully trust you with the situation at hand.
I like that you said trust, because definitely the only way that you're going to come to a father is if you trust that he's safe, correct? And he's not going to judge you, not get mad. So was it hard for you to trust me at the beginning?
In the beginning, yeah.
So was it more out of fear of what I was going to tell you, or anger? Like why? What was the trust breakdown there? Can you explain?
It was more about fear about what you were going to say. And I didn't want to disappoint you in what, I did wrong. Because I'm already feeling guilty about doing like something wrong, and then you going and saying, why did you do that? That was really dumb of you to say, like, do that. You should have done that. That adds on to, that guilt. And so like I wouldn't come to you because I was scared that you would yell at me or go and like say like mean words and like cuss me out or do all this stuff. And like I wasn't able to come to you. So that's why I always went to mom.
right.
for those things, because she had a more like softer, delicate touch and like way of dealing with all that stuff
versus this hard militant style of being detached and just trying to get to the problem, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I see that. I see that definitely. How has it changed? Like, how have I changed in that perspective? Have I gone better?
I think you've gotten a lot better since the beginning. You're here,
Yeah.
which is a change. You know, it's been rough, like because you're always out of town trying to provide for us, and then when you would come, you know, home, and you would like, mom would be taking care of us and have like a certain schedule or whatever, and we were used to her delicate, you know, like comforting side, and then here comes, you know, the big old dad who's like militant and strict and, you know, like firm, and then that comes in, it's like
night and day, right?
Yeah, being a bull in a china shop, you know, like it comes in and like destroys everything, you know, like
but we think we're helping though.
Yeah. So it was really different. There was some times where my mom would ask me, she was like, so are you happy about dad being home? And deep down I was like, no, I wish you'd go back on the road, because it was such a big change in like the atmosphere, and like you're so like mean and like strict. It was like such a different way of living when you're around.
What did you feel like when I was being mean in those times? Did you take it upon yourself? Did you think it was like something that you had done where you like, man, does my dad treat me like this because it's me? I'm doing something wrong? Is that how you felt? Or like,
yeah, I was really like, is it me? Am I the one? Like, I was questioning everything I was doing. And like growing up, my whole life, I was always wanting to be, you know, that perfect daughter who didn't do anything wrong, who made her dad proud, and who didn't really make any mistakes. But that was wrong of me to think that, because, you know, I'm human and we're not perfect. We make mistakes regardless of what we do, and we got to learn from those mistakes to get better.
Man, I could see how totally that when as a father, right, just hindsight 2020, looking back, I could totally see how that made you feel like you had to live in a perfection home. And it sucks because I grew up in a perfection home as well, to where everything had to look a certain way. We had to go outside perfect. I mean, we get our butts handed to us by grandpa and or my dad, and when we went out into public, we had to wipe the blood off our nose, or you know, comb our hair after we've been thrashed or whatever, you know what I'm saying, and put on this perfective persona, you know. So I could totally see how me doing that caused you to feel like you needed to act a certain way and be perfect. And you're absolutely right, Nekodah. There's so much knowledge and wisdom in hearing that from you, because you're right. No one is perfect. People make mistakes. And just like you were making mistakes, me as a father, I was making mistakes too, because you got to understand, none of us grew up with the perfect role model. We learned from our own fathers, right?
Right.
Some better than others, right? And no offense to my father out there or nothing. I love my daddy. He did the best he could. He was always a great provider, and he did what he knew he needed to do. So I'm not holding that hit against him at all. I refuse to have a victim mentality in that aspect. But, you know, we tend to fall back to what we were shown and taught. And that was a lot of the things that I showed you, because I didn't know. You're my firstborn. It's crazy because like the firstborn, it's almost like trial and error. It's like, well, let's try this or let's try this. And it seriously, you guys are like
a guinea pig.
A guinea pig. Exactly. You know what I mean? You've seen the difference between you and then your baby brother, how the treatment is, right? So, and it sucks, you know, and it shouldn't be that way, you know, but just knowing that there's a reason behind everything, the why, like I like to tell it, explain, and I think clears up a lot of questions asked, right? Because you're probably growing up with questions as a young girl. Is it me? Why is my dad always angry? All this different stuff. And I'm here to tell you that no, it's never been you. You were my firstborn daughter, and I love you.
Me too, Dad.
And raising children is not an easy task, especially for a father who wants to provide for you guys and wants to be there for you. It literally would break my heart when I would have to go on the road again. The whole entire time I was home, I was preparing to leave. And in that aspect, the only easy way for me to be able to leave was to completely detach myself from you guys. I started looking at you and Mom, because it was just you two at the beginning, as an object versus people I cared for and loved, because it was easier for me to leave an object versus people I loved.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of fathers do. They detach from the situation. That's good in a sense, like when like one of our past guests, Cody Gandy, talked about total detachment when you're making decisions, you know, and that's what Jocko Willink and them talk about, being detached from the situation and not getting emotional. I agree with that. The problem here lies in with that, though, for me, was that you can't stay there being detached, because that detachment, which you're able to go and go on the road and be away and do a good job, that detachment right there created these separations between the ones I loved, which are you and Mama. And you're living proof. I mean, can't deny it. You're talking right now on this podcast, letting people know, our listeners know, that there was a void that was created between you and I.
Yeah, there was. And I think you know, when you would leave and like when you would leave and you would be, you know, mean and come home, it was like I started to grow that detachment of like trying to almost like stay away from you as much as I could, so that way I didn't have to deal with you being, you know, mean and yelling at me for every little mistake that I did. And so it was easier to stay away from you. So me and you basically just grew apart. And when you would go on the road and you would, you know, come back from storms and bring like little gifts or whatever, those were nice. But it wasn't the same as, you know, being there. And I think a lot of the dads who do go on storm or are away and get gifts for their children, that it's not the same. Like a present can't
replace our presence, right?
Yeah, a present can't replace a father's present. And that's something that I think is a really big issue, because like we try to like spend all this money on them and like try to win them over with that, like, you know, money and stuff like that, when that's not it. Like you'll see it in movies too, like they just want that, you know, validation and love and comfort from a father.
So how would you suggest, in your brain, and what your thoughts are, how would you suggest a father like me and all the countless fathers that listen who actually have to go out and work, what do you suggest to them when they come home? Like to be more, to build those bridges, to have that relationship with their daughter. What do you suggest to them? Because obviously we're not telling people to quit. We can't tell people to quit their jobs, right? We don't want to do that, because that's part of our deal. What do you suggest to those fathers? Like,
my advice is to just go up to her and give her a hug. You know, that's baby steps from there. You know, give her a hug, tell her that you've missed her. And because girls are very, like, you know, affectionate people. Like, we love, like, that validation. That's something that women, I guess I wouldn't say like need, but like that's something that we want that validation from the people that we love. So just like going up and giving her a hug and saying, I've missed you, like, how are you doing, like just like little stuff like that. And then leading up to, you know, like the bigger steps, like talking about like how everything's been, I guess, like if you've done something wrong, and just like little baby steps onto there.
So what I'm getting is, in order for a father to be able to have to bridge those gaps, right, in communication and have that relationship with his daughter, especially if he's on the road, is to show that validation when he is home. Be present, correct?
Yes, be present. Like, I know that.
Be kind.
Yeah, basically. And I know that like some of like nowadays there's so much technology in this place, like to not really be on your phone when you're around here, like give all your attention to her, like make her the main focus of that. And I know that some of the dads who do work, they have you know,
smartphones,
and like stuff on their phone for work. I think it would be best, like, if you are with your daughter, to like, you know, just like set down your phone and put your family first, I guess.
I got you. So that one-on-one time with your family, turn off your phone, right?
Yeah, because that one-on-one time, you'll never really get it back. Because time keeps spinning. You can't like go back in time and get that time with your family and growing that connection back.
I got you. And also too, like with you, going back to our dynamic, we didn't have the luxuries of what people have today. There is no smartphones, remember?
Yeah, I remember that.
So, I mean, that's one of the ways that fathers can use these devices to be able to, you know, obviously our presence, right, can't be there all the time. We can't be with you 100% of the time, right? Because we have to go out and work.
Right.
Okay. But if we can use those devices in a way that is productive to be able to FaceTime or Zoom or whatever it may be, right? To ask you how your day is and get that one-on-one time and talk to our daughters, right? Do you think that would make
that would make a very big difference. Just like calling her like every night and saying good night, you know, checking up on the family, that would make a total difference.
Now, I remember when I was working a lot out of town, I'd call you every morning to pray with you before you went to school. How did that make a difference for you? Did you like that? Or
I liked that. But you know, like over the years with like, you know, you being, you know, mean and stuff, I kind of like was like, oh, he's calling again. Like there's that like.
So I was in alignment with, so 1 minute I'm praying for you in the morning, and then the next minute when I'd come home, I was a jerk, right? So I wasn't practicing what I preached, right?
Right.
And I think that's what happens with a lot of Christians out there. It's easy to fall into that role where 1 minute you're praying and, oh yeah, hallelujah, praise God, all this different stuff, right? And then next you know, you're cussing somebody out or you're back talking someone, and it's so easy to fall into that. I think that's why a lot of people call Christians hypocrites, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, we got to still remember that we're not perfect.
Right. We're human, and it's okay to be human. It's okay to make mistakes and learn from them.
Exactly. So Nekodah, I want to go on to this next question. Okay. Cause obviously, you know, me and your mother haven't had the greatest marriage, right? We've had our ups and downs, and that ain't no secret. You know, I'm not ashamed of that at all. We both had our parts, you know. They say that a marriage is built on thirds: a third of what we see, a third of what we were taught, and then the other third is the atmosphere that we're in. Okay. Those are the three things that really affect our marriage. So with that being said, how did parents fighting, like your parents, like me and your mama, How did that affect you when we were having these conversations that were pretty heated? Like, what do you remember?
I remember the boys crying.
Uh-huh.
I would have to take them into my room or their room, and I'd have to calm them down because they would be crying and they would hear you guys yelling. And then once I'd calm them down, I would like go into the kitchen or like wherever you were, and I would I would like I would, I guess, eavesdrop on it. Like I would see what's going on. And I think that every child has done this in their life, like, to see what's going on and like to see what's the problem and like why you're fighting. Because, we just want to help, we want to we want you guys to stop fighting. So that way, we could be that happy family again, because no child likes it when their family's fighting, because that's a very sad time, and it does affect us in our life. It does affect us like emotionally, and like when your parents are fighting, you do kind of get depressed, I guess, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if there's going to be a divorce or if like somebody's cheated or like something like that's happened. So like all these like thoughts are running in through your head. And so it's scary, and you're just asking yourself like, what can I do to like fix this? Like what can I do to like bring them back together so that way they're happy again.
So as a child, you feel that you have the ability to bring your parents back, is what I'm getting, right?
That's what we want to believe. Like we want to believe that we can fix it, but at the end of the day, the fight's not between us, it's between our parents.
Now you talked about depression as far as when that want to be one of the things that happens when you see your parents fighting. Was there a point in your life that you felt depressed when we were fighting?
Yeah. I was in like beginning of freshman year. You guys were fighting, and it was not beginning, like the end, almost like middle of freshman year. That was hard because I'm in high school, and high school, there's like that stepping stones of your career and like what you want to do. So like homework and school and expectations plus that fighting, it just gets all like jumbled up, and like you're confused almost, like it's like you don't really feel good about it. Like it brings like this sorrow and like bad, like I guess,
vibe or whatever. Yeah, I definitely see the how negative energy could affect you guys, especially in the home. One of the things my good friend Miguel, you remember brother Miguel?
I know Miguel.
One of the things that Miguel would always tell me is, as a husband, as a father, we're able to change our environment. And what he meant by that is our presence, our very presence, has the ability to change the atmosphere, whether the household is going to be in chaos or your household is going to be run in peace. And to prove that, we're at his house one day. I was working out in El Paso, and we're sitting around his dinner table, and he opened up the screen door to his house. It was cold as hell. I mean, for those who've never been out there, it's a high desert and it gets cold, and I think it was snowing that year down there. And he opened up the screen door, and the cold air came in, and everybody's like, damn, Miguel, close the door. What's wrong with you? And he starts kind of laughing, and he closes the door, and he's like, what did I just do? And I, being a smart ass, I tell him, I was like, oh, you freaking let out all the hot air, man. You're trying to heat the neighborhood as if it was my house, but he kind of laughs. He's like, oh, I just changed the atmosphere. He's like, and just the way I open that door to let in the cold air, I can shut it to keep that cold air from coming in. He's like, that's the same thing as fathers. We're the gatekeepers. We are controlling what comes in and comes out of our house, what happens in our atmosphere. So when I'm bringing as a father, what I'm getting at, the point is, as a father, we have control of what we're allowing in our home, whether it be pornography, whether it be drinking or drugs, any of these things. If you're bringing that into your home and you're showing your kids that, what environment are you creating for them?
Exactly. Like, what are you teaching your kids to do, basically?
Now, with that being said, Nekodah, you're the reason why I stopped drinking. Do you remember when Daddy used to drink?
I remember when you would chew. I think I was too young to remember when you would drink, but I do remember when you used to chew. We'd go to that little place over there by that casino or whatever, and then you'd get me a Gatorade.
Get you a Gatorade and a log of chew for me, huh?
Yep.
And what did you think about when Daddy was chewing tobacco? What did you think?
Nah, I was too young to know what it was. But I was just like, oh, Gatorade, yay.
Yeah, so you didn't really have any.
I didn't really know, but the thing that I did know was that it wasn't good. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that it wasn't good. If that makes sense.
How did you know it wasn't good?
Just
from hearing mom, or
yeah, just the whole atmosphere, whenever you'd get it, you'd almost change, you weren't the same, I guess. It was just different.
Yeah, it'd calm me down. I'd throw in a dip and then I'd just be like, oh, this is so good.
Yeah.
And just relax. And then probably around that time, since I was using tobacco to stop drinking, right, and going back and forth, my attitude, I could totally see it. I remember one time your mom told me, she's like, I'd rather you drink than you be coming off chewing tobacco. You're a jerk when you stop chewing tobacco.
Yeah, you were. I think that was one of the hardest years for me, is when you stopped chewing, because every little mistake I made, you would get so pissed off at me for doing, and it'd be little mistakes, I don't know, leaving the chicken gate open or whatever. You'd get so pissed off at me for just these little mistakes. And I think as a little kid, and not being a father being there, we would rather have you be angry at us and show us that kind of affection, and instead of you not show us affection at all.
Wow. So you rather have negative attention versus no attention at all. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I see that. Man, I could see how that could totally send our daughters into the arms of the wrong man, for sure. I mean, because if the only attention you're getting and you don't know any better is crappy attention, the father yelling at you, beating you, or whatever he may be doing, right? Telling you all these mean things, what do you tend to grow up thinking about yourself?
You're worthless, basically, that you don't have a voice, that you're just something that can be pushed around, basically. You tend up going to think that you have no value in yourself.
Wow. Yeah, I could totally see that, man. Yeah, that's it's a big deal, especially with our daughters. There's so many girls that are growing up there right now. I mean, how many girls have you ran into?
I've ran into so many girls who have jumped from boyfriend to boyfriend to boyfriend, and they're in all these toxic relationships, and they they don't see their worth. They find their worth in men.
In boys.
Yeah, in boys, basically, instead of, knowing that they're good enough to, not have a boyfriend. Like, there is one of my friends would always jump from boyfriend to boyfriend to boyfriend, and she would just, like, be in these toxic relationships. And whenever she was in like a good one, she would be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? He's not texting me or responding me like back to me. Like, she was having all this like fear and anxiety of him leaving and like breaking up with her. And so she would like cling on to him like as a lifeline, basically, instead of knowing that she's okay without a guy to validate her.
So do you think that when a girl is needy, right? Or because that's what it comes off to men, you know what I mean? When a girl's clinging like that, we call them needy, right? Or clingy or whatever. But a lot of times when we see that this girl is needy, and I'm just talking about a man who was once a young boy who used to date girls, right?
Right.
So there's no punches here, right? So when I saw a girl who was needy like that, a lot of times we think, oh, well, they want something or they need something, right? And our tendency is to push for that, right? Do you think that's what happens a lot of times at girls your age now? And do you think that's why girls are having premarital sex at a younger age?
Yeah. I believe that it all comes down to, the households,
The
and like
validation.
what you're growing up learning. When a father's not there, it creates this hole in your heart, and you try to look for different ways to fill that hole, but nothing really works. So we go to the second best option, I guess, which is dating guys and getting their validation. And so that's why some girls will send nudes or have sex or like do all this stuff to please that man, or boy, so that way they can get that validation that they need, that which was supposed to be from a father.
I got you. Now, with that being said, speaking your experience, right? How has it been to like go to someone's house or your cousin's house or whatever, their house, and just see the different dynamic? Like, say, for instance, if you go to someone's house and they're watching porn and their parents aren't saying nothing, their parents are in the other room and stuff like that. Cause that happens. I mean, I know, I remember growing up and going to people's houses and, they had porn going on and stuff like that. So with that being said, how coming up from a household that doesn't allow that, is that an automatic trigger to say, man, this isn't right?
Yeah, because it'd be weird. Like, I don't know, it would just be weird, and I'd be like, you're allowed to watch that? Like, it's bad, right? And they'd be like, oh, my parents don't care. And I think that's something that a lot of people use as an excuse. Well, it's not really an excuse, but like they'll be like, oh yeah, my parents don't really care. Like, and they'll like brush it off almost like it's not a big deal that their parents don't care. Like they'll just be like, oh yeah, my parents don't care, I can smoke or whatever. Like, it's fine.
Listen to those words that you said, though, what they were saying. My parents don't care, right?
Yeah.
So when they say that, that automatically gives them a pass of saying, okay, they don't care. Well, guess what? I'm going to get their attention. I'm going to do these things because why? They don't care.
Right. And that's something that I think all parents should be aware of, is going and setting that example and caring for your child. Because when you don't care for your child, you're like, oh yeah, they don't care, so I'm going to do something bad so that way they can
get that attention.
Yeah,
right?
Be angry at me, and I'll have that attention.
Oh, that falls back to that negative attention versus no attention, right?
And like, their parents might not, if they get an A on their hard chemistry tests. Like they'll be like, oh, good job for you. I'm going to go back onto my phone or whatever I'm doing. Instead of like, you know, getting in trouble, like with a fight or with drugs or anything like that, and getting that like negative attention. Like if you won't validate them for the good things, then they'll resort to the bad things. So that way they can get, you know, attention that's not good, that negative attention.
I got you. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Nekodah, is we want to talk about the importance of having a good atmosphere. Okay. So we talked about atmosphere in the home, right? And how important it is for a father to create, right, that atmosphere for your children. Okay. And we have descriptive examples, you know, the whole screen door and stuff like that. And then your examples of me coming home, right? So with that being said, how has the atmosphere changed? Like how important is the atmosphere, not only just where you're raised at in your home, but out in, say, per se, your school, like your school environment? How important is that environment? Because one of the things you told me one day, and I've shared it on the podcast before, is that when we moved from New Mexico to Southern California, you came home one day and you were really depressed. And I asked you, I was like, Nekodah, what's going on? And you're like, I don't want to talk about it. And you kind of brushed it off. And then later on, I hit you up again on it. And I was like, Nekodah, what's going on? You're like, I don't feel like I fit in, is what you told me. Remember that? And when you did that, I asked you, why do you feel that you didn't fit in? And you're like, Dad, no one's talking about fighting, or no one's talking about who got beat up or jumped this weekend. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. And like I remember that day, like I would, because everybody at my old school would like hit you, like, you know, like push you or shove you like in a playful way, and nobody there really did that. So when I did that to one of my friends, they were like, oh, like, why'd you hit me? And I was like, oh, sorry. Like that's like the atmosphere that I grew up in. And it was strange that there weren't any fights. Like when I first moved here, like, you know, that it's like, it's really different when you go from one atmosphere to another. It's a whole different change and experience, because, you know, you've lived in New Mexico, you've lived in the ghetto, and you've lived in like with drug addicts and like pedophiles around your corner and stuff. So you have this survival, you're in this survival mode all the time. And when you go to school, you're kind of like always checking behind your back, making sure that nobody will come and like jump you or like do it. Like you're always like trying to make sure that you didn't do something wrong, like you didn't, you know, like piss off the wrong person or anything like that. And coming to California and, you know, living in the area that we do, it was really strange for me to like, you know, see neighbors playing out in the street, because, you know, we didn't have that. So that was weird. And then like having everybody like know each other and be nice and a genuine person, that was really different too. And like there were no fights at the school. So I was like, oh, this is like, it was really different.
It's a culture shock, right?
It was a culture shock, a major culture shock. So it was just like really different.
So do you feel that the atmosphere from where you grew up to where you're at now has really made a difference in the young lady you're becoming?
Oh yeah. Back in New Mexico, it was like I would always get anxiety whenever I'd go to school.
I remember that.
Yeah, I would always get anxiety. My stomach would start to hurt and like I wouldn't feel good, you know.
What do you think that was
really
from?
Depressed. Well, your stomach has more nerves than like in the entire body. That's basically like your stomach is the part where it has more nerves. So when I would get anxiety, it would go to my stomach and then my stomach would start hurting. So it like I wouldn't, like I was always wondering if it was something I was eating. Like me and mom would have to switch up my diet to make sure I wasn't like eating anything bad. And
all the while it was nerves.
Yeah, all the while it was just me being nervous and anxious of going to school. And like I really felt that people judged you a lot. And like especially in elementary, I was always so nice to everybody, like, and I wanted to make friends. Like I wanted to have friends, you know, I wanted to have that, you know, best friend you see in the movies or whatever. And I never really got that. Like I always had people, like I was always making friends, but they would just stab me in the back and like, you know, go away and like go to like the popular kids or whatever. And like I was always super nice to them, but they would come up with rumors and like stuff about like me not being friendly or whatever, like calling me names or whatever. So it was just really different growing up in New Mexico. And then when I first got to, you know, my high school now in California, at the beginning, like those first 2 or 3 months, I was still like anxious and I still had anxiety. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many people here. Like our school's like was 3 times bigger. My school now is 3 times bigger than the one back home. So there's like it's so many more people. And it was just like really nervous and shocking. But now that, you know, I'm settled in now, like I don't get nervous going to school. I'm actually excited to go to school and like I'm actually excited to go to school and see friends and learn. So that's something that was really shocking to me, so looking back on it.
So to recap, it does sound like a change in scenery, change in environment has been good for you.
Yeah, it has. Granted, I'll still miss my friends and stuff and family and having a big backyard and animals. But it's really benefited me for the better. You know, I'm learning so many more new things. I've gone out of my comfort zone and I'm on, you know, cheer. I'm on the song. Like that's something
huge.
I wouldn't do back in New Mexico. Like I was a total introvert back in New Mexico.
I remember we had the farm, remember? And you would always hang around with animals. And I had a past guest, Phil Johnson, talking about emotional intelligence and how EQ is more sought after than IQ right now, right? And he was talking about how people will tend to go to these animals because they feel like they're not judged. And after he said that, it made total sense, because I always wonder, I was like, why is my daughter out there in the tree with the cats, you know, or singing outside at 10 o'clock at night, you know, with the dogs or whatever, or playing with her chickies, or, you know, all these different awesome aspects of having land like that I'm sure you missed, you know, and enjoyed. But at the same token, it wasn't healthy for your development. And seeing from there to now how you've blossomed to this young lady who is not an introvert, who's actually very talkative, who loves to be out there in front of people and talking and enjoying people and all this different stuff, and totally having that self-confidence too. A lot of times they say, from what I've heard, confidence in our children, even in our spouse, comes from their husband, from their father, right? So I don't know if I can tie it from me just actually being home and being more present now to where your confidence level is now, or if it was actually your mom and I taking the steps to move our family from that toxic environment and bringing them out here to where you're actually blossoming. I don't know. You know?
I think it's both. Yeah, like there are parts that go into me, you know, blossoming and stuff, like getting out of that
comfort zone, right?
Yeah, comfort zone was a challenge, but I think it was back in New Mexico, and I think it was because of like the culture I was surrounded by. Like if you stood out, like if you wanted to be like your own person, you were looked down on in high school. Like you could not grow and be different and do stuff that you wanted to do. Like you couldn't be different in any way. And if you were different in any way, people would look down on you and be mean to you. Now in this environment, you're like, if you do something different, people are like, oh, right on, that's really cool. And like I'm still trying to get over me being different and me truly expressing myself as who I am, because I'm still working through getting over being the same as everybody, being normal. And I think something that's really cool is my name means distinguished. Yeah. It means distinguished. And so I'm trying to live up to my name, to be distinguished, to be unique, to be my own person.
I like that. And it's cool to see how much you've changed and developed from that scared little girl who no one wanted to sit at the table with, who when you would sit, I remember you going to a school, and it broke my heart because your mama was the one that was telling me. And, I was on the road, of course. And she called me up crying one day. And she's like, man, I just witnessed Nekodah go and sit down, because you went to a private Christian school.
I remember that. I remember this.
And you went to some pastor's kids.
Yep.
And you sat down at their table, and they actually waited. Mom said that they waited for you to sit down and get comfortable. And then once you sat down and got comfortable, they all got up and left laughing.
Yep.
And they sat at another table. So then you got up and you followed them like a little puppy and sat down, and they did it again. They kept doing that over and over again. And Mom said that she would have to go when she worked at the church the first time and go and sit with you for lunch.
Yep. Every day. I still remember that. I was always trying to make friends there, and it was really shocking to me that, a pastor's daughters would do that, especially in a Christian school. Like, I thought I was going to be like, oh my gosh, we share the same faith and religion, that's really cool. And, they were always mean, they were always trying to, isolate me. Like they would always push me away from what they wanted to do. And like what is that word? Like they would like I guess remove me from there. Like whenever I wanted to play, I guess like say horse or whatever, they would always be like, oh no, you can't do that. Segregate. Yeah, they would always segregate me from anything I did. And like I never really had friends there, so I was always friends with like the teachers or like the older kids who were like really nice. I still remember this one girl, Destiny. She was so sweet.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times too, Nekodah, just to touch base on that, is that hurting people hurt people, and no one's perfect. And hindsight 20, looking back, we understood and knew that their parents were going through a lot.
Right.
And that ain't no different than you going through what you're going through and then being mean to your brothers, right? We deflect, correct?
Yeah.
When we're dealing with eternal pain, that just goes to show you what happens, when children are hurting, when they're seeing their parents fight, right? Then it deflects it. Kids internalize it, and then all of a sudden they start lashing out because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with that emotion.
Right.
They can't process it.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why you go and you isolate so you can process your problems.
And like I'll like find ways to get my emotions out, like drawing and stuff like that. Like I'll do that. I think that's probably why I've been like so artistic lately. Like really getting out there and like painting things feelings and like painting my emotions or drawing out what I'm feeling in that specific time.
So do you suggest to other young girls out there that that's one of the ways that you express yourself and your anger and your emotions?
Yeah. You know, back in New Mexico, we had that bag, and I would go in the garage and I'd get the boxing gloves and I would hit the bag. And that's one way I had dealt with my emotions. And when we moved, we didn't bring the bag with us. So I had to figure out a way to get all my emotions out. And mom was like, write it in a journal, but like, or like journal it or whatever. And I didn't like doing that. I don't know why. I think it was just because like it was coming from my parents saying do this, and I wanted to find my own way of expressing myself. So I finally found my way, and that was through art, and it's actually really helped me a lot. And so I think one of the ways girls can define or like get all that anger out is try new things. Try drawing, try writing it in a journal or scrapbooking, or making songs or whatever, like just like getting it out, and in
a healthy way, right?
In a healthy way, instead of holding it in, because when we hold it in, it's like crumpled up paper in like a tiny little bin. Like you throw more and more paper on it, and when you like smash it down to like hold it all in, it comes up like a spring.
There's nowhere for it to go, right?
And so when you do deal with it, and like you deal with one problem at a time, and that's you unraveling that crumpled up paper and folding it neatly and setting it down in the bottom of the bin, it's still there, but you've dealt with it in a proper manner.
I got you. So fathers, if you're listening, that's one of the ways you can share with your daughters and how to deal with these emotions that they're going to have. Little girls are completely different than males, as a lot of fathers out there have found out. So that's one of the ways, right, from my daughter, how she deals with her emotions is through creative expression, through singing, like she said, through creating a diary, through painting, all these different things that you can share with your own daughter just to help them out. I mean, they're going through a lot of different emotions. Their bodies are changing, different changes in their atmosphere, whatever it may be. They're going through a lot, and they don't need us pushing them away. So I hope this helped you guys. Once again, this is David with the Show Up Dad, just trying to bring you guys real life answers to problems that plague us as fathers, as husbands. Okay, guys, I appreciate you, and thank you for listening to my daughter, Nekodah.
Thank you so much for listening. It was an honor being on my dad's podcast, and just to let you fathers know that your daughters do love you, even though we, try to push you away. We do love you, and we do care about you, and your presence does make a difference in our lives.
Thank you. And also for everybody who supported my daughter for the song JV team, Nekodah has something to say to you guys.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. It has really helped me. I'm so grateful for all of you guys. You have done amazing, and we went above and beyond with how much money we raised. So I'm just so grateful for all your donations and everything like that. I'm just so happy that you have supported me in this, and just I'm so happy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, you heard it from her. You heard it from the daddy. You guys have an awesome one. Thank you.